Good morning everyone, this is Vishwanath Sandilya from South Mumbai Chess Academy. Today in this video I'm going to show you a game played by Karjakin versus Malinin. It was in the year 2002 where Sergey Karjakin became the youngest Grandmasters, and it was the next tournament which he played. So in this game Karjakin is white and Malinin is black. Malinin proper. So here white played e4 and Karjakin opponent okay, so he played a tricky move, but it converted into a Scotch defense. He started with knight to c6. So this is an interesting move. Pawn to d4 and e5. So at that point Karjakin is a very strong tactical player. So when he became a grandmaster, so normally in this position we see pawn to d5 gives a slight advantage for white, but he continued developing the pieces, which is equally good. Knight to f3, he captures d4, knight into d4. So here we see the normal move, something like bishop to c5 or knight to f6, but the opponent just played queen to h4. A very interesting option. He thought he can just beat a 12-year guy who became grandmaster, but he thought he was just underestimating him. Queen h4 is actually a dubious line, because if white continued the main variation, black have some trouble. So he plays knight to c3, the best and the only way to defend the pawn. Bishop to b4. So now he is threatening the knight, and he is pinning the knight and threatening the pawn on e4. So maybe capturing bishop c3 is also sometimes possible. So Karjakin just ignored and continued bishop to e2, which is the main line. So now the opponent just thought for some time, and he played knight to f6. He could have captured the pawn, but then he have some difficult times defending this variation with knight to b5. As you can clearly see, knight b5 is a very nice move, threatening knight to c7 and gives a knight fork on the king and the rook. Now black really don't have much options except to defend this. If he tries to defend this with okay, so first simple variation, if he captures the pawn, maybe bishop to f3, queen attack, and there is no way to stop knight to c7. And if he plays something like bishop to c3, thinking that he might capture with knight into, then he can just win the pawn on g2. But here white just simply can capture with pawn takes. Pawn takes the on c3, which threatens knight c7 fork, and black is forced to defend it with king d8, and now white can castle. So this gives a good advantage for white. So coming back, so what he thought is knight to f6. So his plan may be, after winning the pawn on e4, when maybe black threatens the pawn knight to b5, he can even try to do castling. So Karjakin just continued his development with castling and bishop to c3. So now comes the most important part in this game. So as he thought, like, Karjakin is going to capture the pawn, and black is simply going to win the pawn. So black is clearly better. So now pause the video for some time, try to find the best way where white can continue and win the game. Okay, so good if you have found this variation, knight to f5. Outstanding move. It's not only just one move to play knight f5 to attack the queen. There is a very deep understanding behind this move. So black thought, okay, so let me get this pawn, rook queen to e4, and now attacking the knight, and if I move the knight I'm going to lose a piece which I black captured on c3. So there is nothing else, I have to defend it. So bishop to d3. Now again white played a very nice tricky move. Black played a very nice tricky move, queen to g4. Now he thought, if Karjakin needs to save the exchange of queens where he is a pawn down, because I am going to get my piece here, I have to do something like f3. That when I play f3, there is an interesting move, bishop to d4. So bishop d4 check and king moves, and black saved the bishop. So the master thought, like, he has saved the bishop, or queens is going to get exchanged and he will play an endgame with a pawn up. So that's a very interesting thing. But Karjakin was very smart. He played pawn to f3. Now the reason behind this move is, if you give a check on bishop d4, white can simply move queen to h1. Now the problem with this move is, your queen only escaping square is somewhere on the queen side, which is blocked by your own bishop. Now you have to move something with the queen, and if you play something with queen to g6, I have a simple discovered attack and give a check which can win the queen for me. And queen h5 is the other option where you can see a very nice knight fork. So black is losing. So now there is no option. After f3 you have to move the queen. And if I think of something like queen b4, so that gives a slight advantage for white. After capturing, now I can just have some check on g7 or rook to e1. With both the checks, white is clearly better. So opponent thought it's not important to take the pawn right now after capturing. It's important to save a move. So he went queen to a4, which is the most logical move. And Karjakin captured the bishop, which is on c3, which we have to take. And black did castling. So at this point, the opponent was very happy that he was a pawn up, and he can just win the game. So how now I want you to pause the video and plan what have Karjakin see before he played the move bishop to d3. Okay, good. So there is an outstanding sacrifice starting with a brilliant move, knight to g7. When I first saw this game, I was literally surprised. How can a 12-year boy play such a brilliant move like knight captures the g7? And I don't see any piece which is nearby the king also. It's too brilliant. And once king captures g7, there is another brilliant move which is coming, bishop to h6. Now it's very clear, if you move the king back, something like g8, and I can simply play something like queen d2, maybe threatening to get queen to g5 and m8. If I move king to h8, simply I can win the rook, and opponent have no choice except to capture. So now this is the reason behind giving both the pieces, queen to d2 check. If now black have a few options. If he go king back to g7, which he didn't do, now queen g5 is a simple win, which is king h8, queen f6 check, king to g8, and now another couple of checks, and queen h6, with a very nice mating threat on h7 and also f8. So black cannot move the king back, so his only option is to move the king to h5. And now the Karjakin continued his attacking with pawn to g4, check. And if I move the king, again a simple queen h6 will checkmate the king. Queen h6, knight h5 and queen h5, forced to capture the g4 pawn, and pawn takes, check, and queen takes is a check for the white king. And now the only move and the best move is king h1. Now we have reached a position where black is a knight and 2 pawns up, but you see the king placing is too bad. Simply one move like bishop e2 which can win the queen. So opponent really can't do much here. He is almost trapped like anything. So what he did is he played his best try. He want to get one piece maybe. Even if you play bishop e2, maybe I can get some few more pieces so that I can play at least with 2 pieces and 2 pawns versus a queen. That still is a good option. But Karjakin was not really interested in just winning the queen. He saw a little bit more. And the best part in this game is he followed the principles so brilliantly. Up to every single move he applied all the rules. So he played move rook to f6, a very nice move, planning to checkmate with rook h6 or queen h6. And the best thing about this move is he can get the one more rook into the game, rook to g1 or something. So black have no option. He stopped the mate with queen g5. And now comes the move bishop to e2 check, and something like bishop g4 and bishop into g4. So here opponent have no option except to resign, because if he takes with queen into, there is a mate coming on h6, and if he takes with king into, maybe I can just simply win the queen and everything. Or maybe I can just go for a mate, something like okay, queen g5, queen h3, queen g4 or queen g3 is a mate. Or sometimes rook h6 is also a very nice move, queen h6 and queen h6. So a very nice and instructive game in Scotch defense, where opponent just underestimated the world's youngest grandmaster and played a tricky variation with queen h4, but Karjakin played so brilliantly to outplay him. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more videos. Thank you for again watching this video.